Sandy Riach, who is chair of the Scottish Disabled Supporters Association, and Joanna Deagle from CAFE, who is the Fans Liaison and Development Manager. Welcome to the stage. Thank you. Sandy, if I could start with you, please. Have you got a mic? Do you need to grab a microphone? Thank you. I'm very aware of the Scottish Disabled Supporters Association and the good work you're doing and how you developed and came about, but I think a lot of people in the audience don't perhaps know, and I think it would be really helpful to share briefly your story, how you developed, and the impact that you're already having at a national level. That would be great. So over to you, please, Sandy.
Thank you very much. It's the first time I've been here, and I hope you can understand my Scottish accent. It's quite strong. And I hope the translators are going to cope with it. I first got involved with the Aberdeen Football Club 11 years ago, and it was quite a surprise to me about how much there was not done to support the disabled supporters. Rolling on from that, about 6 years later, I came across Keith Ferguson, who at that time was working for CAFE, and we were going to look at organising a Scottish Disabled Supporters Association. It started off with 5 clubs, and with Rangers, Dunfermline, Aberdeen, Kilmarnock and Hearts. It's now grown to 22 out of the 42 clubs in the Scottish the SPFL. The benefits of it have been fantastic because we actually have a dialogue with the Scottish Football Association and bringing improvements to the national stadium, but we're also finding that clubs are coming to us now as the experts in the field for disabilities and asking and seeking our advice about what can we do better, how can you help us, how can we give the advice. And from that, it's grown, and it's, I think, a really, really important part of a national association to have that dialogue and have that association with the disabled supporters.
Thank you very much. And I know that you in particular have a great relationship with the Scottish Football Association and with the Scottish leagues as well. And I think it's testimony to, this isn't about beating everybody over the head with a stick. It's about raising those issues that we know best about and pushing for change, and most importantly, making sure we keep our topic really at the top of everybody's agenda, because in a day-to-day world of football, it's very easy for it to slip. So I think well done for the work that you're doing, and I hope it inspires some of the others in the room to not only be having a club association, but to come together more nationally. Joe, if I can turn to you and the great job you're doing at CAFE. We internally at CAFE know how important you are to the team and the work that you're doing, but perhaps in your part of your role is about fan liaison. And perhaps you could just explain a little bit about what that means and some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to apologise first, because although I'm fans liaison, I haven't done much of that for the past 2 days. I've probably more likely just run past you, so I'm very sorry for that. But I'm sure there'll be more opportunity to meet in the future, and I look forward to that. So as CAFE, we can provide the tools and materials and guidance for disabled supporters groups who want to set themselves up. And we serve as a background facilitator. So we really encourage fans to create user-led groups so that those are the ones with the passion and the motivation to carry things forwards, and that's often very, very powerful. And so as CAFE, we can be in the background to help you when you face challenges or when you need guidance, and we can also provide a greater network of other groups as well to help you. But we very much encourage groups to find their own path, because we're also aware that with each country, every country has a different culture and has different legislation, as we discussed yesterday. So everybody has their own journey, but we're there to support you in that and to help you when you go through challenges. And then also we love to share it when you have those triumphs and those successes. So.
Thank you very much, Joe. And I think Joe's encapsulated that perfectly. You know, we are very sensitive at CAFE. Our job is not to tell you what to do, is to be there in the background to help and support, and sometimes to motivate, maybe give you a bit of a prod, but to very much encourage you to take this up yourselves at a local level, and to have us there in the background, working closely with UEFA, who can then influence their own national associations and members, beginning to work as we are with the European Club Association to do the same, hopefully with the leagues, and so on and so on. But it's so important you do it yourselves. I know lots of you in the room, of course, most of you in the room, and I'm very aware that there are a number of you in certain countries that are in final stages of discussion about forming a national association. I wonder if any of you have any specific questions. Here's your opportunity from 5 people who actually have been on this journey and understand the challenges you face in trying to either set up at club level or trying to set up at national level, or indeed from any of the clubs or federations and national associations that have questions, how you can support this initiative. Have we still got Jan Bluesen from KMVB with us today? Did he have to go home? Jan, I wonder if you could say a few words, if we give you a mic, about how you've been helping to facilitate this in the Netherlands. That would be really helpful. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm mindful of the support you've given.
Actually, good morning.
Good morning.
Jan Bluisen from the Dutch FA. It's a hard day's work, actually. We had our first conversation last year. And many good things happened afterwards, but still nothing actually happened. We invited all the clubs, and just one club took the invitation. So I was actually wondering, like in the last 2 speeches, how did you do it? You know, what is the persuasion for clubs to join you on this matter?
Volker, would you like to say a few words in answer?
Well, first of all, what we did is we formed a national organization based on the interests of people with disabilities. So when we were founded, most of our members were disabled supporter clubs at club level. And when we succeeded with this, so then we were able to push pressure on the clubs and say, well, we have a disabled supporter group at club level, and now we'd like to invite you to join us and to work together with us. And so, well, it was a process lasting several years, but well, in the end, we succeeded, and most of the clubs are now as well member of our national organization. And above that, every year our annual general meeting is organized and financed by one of the clubs.
Very good.
So, but in the beginning, it was the disabled supporter groups which formed our national organization.
But actually, I always believe you need a goal. You need what's in it for me. For everyone is telling himself, you know, what's in it for me. And what did you tell them? What brings this group for them?
For the clubs?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the clubs know that disabled fans has always been part of the fan community. So if a club cares about their fans, if a club cares about the children, for example, you have a family stands or whatever. So I think it's a normal thing to care about those fans with different disabilities. So that's what we've told them, and yeah. So in the end, I think we succeeded with that.
Well, Joyce, actually, as I told, it's a hard day's work, but I still believe in it, and that's why I came to this conference, and I hope in next conference we can give you better information than
super. And Jan, we will keep working together. It, I can certainly speak for the experience of Level Playing Field, having been on the journey with Level Playing Field. It can be motivated by a number of things. Level Playing Field was formed way before my time, when a group of fans said, let's put aside our club rivalry, this is a much more important topic and we're going to be stronger in numbers, much like BBAG. So actually, it used to be called NADS, the National Association of Disabled Supporters, now Level Playing Field, was very much driven out of a passion for change and almost an anger that things weren't changing. So it was a very grassroots organisation, and I'm proud we've kept that grassroots. We're still a member-driven organisation, even though we now operate on a more sophisticated NGO basis. But I think also, Volker's point, this has to come from the clubs, because the clubs have to show some support, and it is as simple as, you know, I think we talked about it yesterday, and I think, Sandy, you can probably testify to this. We don't want to sound like we're whinging, but it is often much harder for disabled people to come together. Transport's difficult, the cost of the transport, and so on and so on. So I'm afraid we do sometimes need to say, help us financially, and even if it is only to facilitate those first meetings. But we'll keep speaking, and I know, Joe, that you're keen to pick this baton up with the Netherlands as well. And we certainly know fans in the Netherlands. You know yourself, you have clubs where this is happening at club level. We just have to get them to see perhaps the bigger picture, and I think it will help move the whole thing forward. In closing, Sandy, perhaps you could talk a little bit about that. You know, clearly we are football fans before anything else, and you know, I sit around a table of trustees. I'm a Manchester United fan, and my trustees include Liverpool fans, Chelsea fans, and so on and so on. And we put that aside. Tell me about how you made that transition from club rivalry to the bond of national.
I think as a supporter myself, and have been since, well, knee-high grasshopper, what I found straight away, there was a family. And that family didn't matter whether you were Hearts, Hibernian, Glasgow Celtic, Rangers. It didn't matter. You were a family. You all had the same common goal, and you all wanted to do what was best for those with a disability. And that's been my passion for the last 5 years, since I started this since I started the SDSA. As an overwhelming case for social responsibility at the clubs, and bad press is not good when it comes to somebody with a disability, because it'll hit the headlines straight away, as it happened just recently at the Scotland-Germany game, where the advertising hoardings were in the wrong place. Now, it made national headlines. That's something that the clubs don't want to have. And I think it's their responsibility to make sure to work with the DSAs and work with the fans themselves to help improve. Open the dialogue. The dialogue has to be there, and the clubs have to be willing to do that. And as somebody said earlier on, and yesterday as well, it has to come from the top. It has to come. If you can't get it driven down, then you have to find a way to get there to make it happen. For me, it is a very important part of it, and I think over the last 5 years we've built on that relationships, and we're going to keep building on that. Whether there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I don't know, but we'll keep doing what we do to make life better for everybody.
Super, thank you, Sandy. I wonder, have I got Dave here? I think he may have had to leave. Dave or Malik from the French, they've both gone. I wonder if you could forgive me if I ask Amy to speak because of the language differences. Amy, sorry to put you on the spot, but I know at the moment that the French disabled supporter groups are in final discussions about a national group, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about some of the challenges you're facing in putting that together, and how then we might be able to address them, because I think sometimes it puts organisations and fans groups at club level, it puts them off that they have to get a bit more formal, if you like, and some of the challenges you're facing in taking that next step.
Sure. Well, I think one of the first things that will be most challenging for people is, as you say, to actually formally set up such an association on a national level, which would involve people who are already working hard in their spare time for their club level associations, and then to take it to that next level, which will obviously entail more hard work and more organisation, which is required. But I think that everyone is very motivated to do it.
And I understand that also you have to register here in France before you can form a body at national level. Is that right? I think there's some regulation that you are needing to fulfill.
I'm not sure about that. René might be able to answer that question better.
Oui, bonjour à tout le monde. Oui, effectivement, pour l'instant, le problème que nous avons, c'est que nous démarrons là, depuis, je vous ai dit hier, depuis donc 48 heures aujourd'hui, la fédération. Donc, on va essayer de voir. Mais c'est vrai que ce qui nous manque, c'est le temps.
We need to have it translated, sorry.
As we said yesterday, we've actually only had the association has been signed yesterday morning.
Oh, many congratulations.
The French national...
Yay!
And René was saying that the biggest problem that he's faced with, or that we're all faced with, is time constraints.
Yeah, and I think that raises a very important point. Steph, if I can turn to you, clearly Level Playing Field now enjoys a level of funding. It isn't enough, but it is significantly more, I mean seriously significantly more than the national groups in other countries have at this moment in time. Mm-hmm. Perhaps you could tell me a little bit about how we've gone on that journey, and I know sort of it's a bit unfair to ask you that at this stage, but how we go about getting that funding and our sort of raison d'etre in terms of then having staff to do the work, so to speak, day to day.
Okay, I think a large proportion of our success over the years, and we have come from very humble beginnings, is because of partnership working, and that doesn't happen overnight. I mentioned in my presentation about becoming trusted partners. And Joyce will know, because she's been working at Level Playing Field a lot longer than I have, but that's a lot of face-to-face conversations, a lot of open and frank conversations about what the issues are, but building that relationship and having that line of communication with media partners, political partners, national governing bodies, sporting partners, and with clubs, you know, going out to visit clubs and building that relationship and making it a positive one as well. I said it's not all about bringing negativity to a club or an organisation. It's about focusing on the positive and what can be done to kind of ensure long-term change. And I think once you get your foot in the door, so to speak, and the club realise that there actually is a positivity to having that relationship with you, they're more trusting and then probably more likely to kind of support you, whether that be financially or in terms of time. You know, in terms of different projects, we've worked with lots of different partners on different projects, and more, as our relationships are building, we're finding that clubs and organisations are coming to us and saying, actually, we'd really like to do something. We're not quite sure how to do it, but actually, can we use your expert advice and guidance to help us achieve X, Y, and Z as part of their perhaps wider equality programme?
Thank you. And I think there is the point that, you know, of course, in the beginning, you have to have those champions that we keep talking about that we know give up endless hours of their own time to make it happen. But unfortunately, like anything in life, change only happens when we take personal responsibility for it. So I would advise that, you know, I know René and other colleagues are very determined to see this happen. Keep the faith. keep speaking and asking for those meetings. As Steph says, it's important that you don't go just with a bag of problems, because none of us like a bag of problems. Of course, we can't shy away from the issues and challenges and things that need to change, but open that dialogue, but don't be afraid to ask for resource and support. You know, push for that. This is such an important part of football, but it does. The clubs, the federations are very aware everything has a price, everything costs money, and ourselves as well. You know, we need help too in making that happen. So keep pushing for it. There are funding streams you can look to. I know there are social responsibility funding streams, and I can tell you at Level Playing Field, because I've been on that journey. In the very beginning, our first bits of funding were very small. We got a grant from Lloyds TSB Bank of £5,000, which sounds a lot of money, but it doesn't go very far. But that did two things. It gave us some money to do something a bit more professional than we were able to do as the volunteers that we are. And that also, quite honestly, embarrassed the football authorities a bit that we had turned externally. Because one of the problems that we all face is that when you go to those external funders, they will usually say, football's very rich, why aren't they giving you any money? Don't be afraid to say that. You will have to have some uncomfortable conversations, but you can have those challenging conversations in a way that is positive and leads forward. And very much the strength, I think, at Level Playing Field is we almost are a bit schizophrenic, if you like, in that day to day, we provide a service. We now have professionals on board that can provide expert advice and guidance to support the clubs. We've widened our membership. We're not just members as disabled supporters and disabled supporter groups. They are our grassroots. They are our most valued members. They still vote me in as chair. They still vote the trustees in. They still very much play the leading role in the direction we take. But we also have club members, so that's really important too. They feel part of it. They don't have a vote, but they feel part of it as well. So it's about that inclusive approach. So please keep pushing forward. I know how you feel. Believe you me, I know how you feel, but it's worth it. And you will reach a point, I promise you, Rene, you'll reach a point, we'll have a conversation and say, do you know what, you were right. But you just got to stick with it. You've got to stick with it, and it'll come good. And we're here to help and support as much as we can as well. I think that we are actually surprisingly running quite ahead of time. So if there are any other questions, I would be very pleased to welcome them. I'm sure there are, because I know this is a topic that is very much on the agenda of many people. I'd like to then just open up a little bit and talk about other fans groups, because of course they play an important part too. I think what we know, well, I don't think I know what we know, is that you have to give a voice to disabled people themselves. At the same time, we can't do this on our own. We need the support of the clubs, the federations, governments. We need support from every quarter. But we also need support from our fellow fans and fans groups. And I know in Germany, Volker, that the fans movement really drives football to a great extent, and much more than any other country. But perhaps you can talk to me a little bit about the relationship that you have with the other fans groups.
Well, we have a relationship, of course, but to be honest, there are different problems concerning the other fans, we work together, but not so intensively as we should do. So, most of the things we did and still do on our own, but when we started, it was a couple of support groups where also disabled fans are members. So those support groups of both disabled and non-disabled fans, they drove us. They helped us to form our national organization.
Oh, that's interesting. So they were, because we found in some parts of Europe, Joe, I think, turning to you, where disabled fans are almost, I sometimes have the sense, uncomfortable about stepping forward and will align themselves with non-disabled, for want of a better description, fans groups. Can you talk a little bit about that and why we're so committed to having disabled fans groups?
So there are a couple that have started or who are starting and are linked with the wider supporter group. But some of the challenges that they have faced is that their needs, what they're fighting for, which is greater access and greater inclusion, kind of falls down on the chain of things that the group wants to achieve. And then also it means that they rely on those people, and they sometimes rely on certain funding. And whereas if you're a user-led disabled supporters group, then you have that independence, and your desires and your aims are right at the top of the list, and it's not put down further.
Thank you very much, Joe. And this is constantly happens, and it is that the two parallels of a similar issue, but it is always important that disabled people speak for disabled people. I think that's probably a good way to end this session. It's a constant journey. We're all always learning. Every one of us here has learned something new over the last few days, and I'm sure we will keep on learning. I hope we do. But please, as disabled people, be bold. We're very happy to help and to support you, and find your voice. Don't be frightened to speak up, because unless we keep raising the issues, as Volker said so well in his presentation, this will slip. It will slip, because that's human nature. So we have to keep reminding football this has to get better. And there's no better people and no better advocates to do that than disabled people themselves. So thank you very much to all the panel guests for this session. It's been great to welcome you, great to hear more about what work you're doing. I really hope that it motivates those of you out there that haven't yet reached this stage. Please use this knowledge, please stay in touch, please do ask us, and we'll be delighted to help facilitate you to move forward. And I hope at the next conference we have many more national disabled supporters associations. For me, that is just as important a piece of work that CAFE does as all of the other stuff we're doing with UEFA and best practice and so on. This is the bit that will change it in every country. I am very convinced of that, and I know that my team is very convinced of that, and I think this really gives the evidence to prove that. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.